When I hosted President Ghani and Chairman Abdullah at the White House in June, and again when I spoke by phone to Ghani in July, we had very frank conversations. We talked about how Afghanistan should prepare to fight their civil wars after the U.S. military departed, to clean up the corruption in government so the government could function for the Afghan people. We talked extensively about the need for Afghan leaders to unite politically. They fail to do any of that. I also urged them to engage in diplomacy, to seek a political settlement with the Taliban. This advice was flatly refused. Mr. Ghani insisted the Afghan forces would fight, but obviously he was wrong. So I'm left again to ask of those who argue that we should stay, how many more generations of America's daughters and sons would you have me send to fight Afghanistan's civil war when Afghan troops will not?
One of the things that's hard to understand, 2,500, 3,500 troops on the ground, but those troops on the ground also had support teams around them, private contractors, number of people who were defense, intelligence, and diplomatic, analysts, researchers, support within the embassy compound, within Camp Eggers, which is right near the embassy compound in downtown Kabul. That's all what we lost at that time. So that helps us understand, I think, why 2,500 troops were so important. We get fixated on that number. But around that number was a very strategic, important sort of stabilization force, I would say, that had not taken a casualty in 18 months. That's all of what we pulled out. And it basically was like pulling a thread, and it happened so rapidly. And the Taliban was ready to move in, and they were very strategic. They actually went after the areas in the north that were hardest for them to take first, and they took them because we had pulled out of them. Then they went to the west, and then they hit in the south at the same time. And so they basically, by mid-July, had 2/3 of the center of the country and the capital, Kabul, surrounded. And then it was just a matter of time. And we began to see the Afghan army disintegrate. And, on Sunday, the president, Ashraf Ghani, get in a plane and fly away. I feel a little bit like a cynic at this point, because this is like watching what happened in Iraq in 2014, that we were just astonished when the whole Iraq army melted away and allowed ISIS to take over a city of 2 million. And so here we are now. We have watched the Afghan army melt away and the Taliban move in and take over a city of nearly 6 million people. One of the first things that Vice President Biden did, even before President Obama was inaugurated, is he was sent to Afghanistan to size up the situation. And he has leaned on that experience a number of times as informing his judgment. But I think that if you come forward, so then you have the Trump era where President Trump was determined to sort of see through what Obama had failed to see through. But what he did was he sat down with the Taliban, or his people sat down with the Taliban, in Qatar, which has been one of the sponsors of the Taliban, and never included the Afghan government. U.S. officials were sent over there in 2018 and met secretly with the Taliban. And so just the picture, it's not hard to understand for even the most non-expert of us what's wrong with this picture. The idea that we have, for all of these years, tried to build up the Afghan government, stand alongside them, fight alongside their military, and that then we would go to Qatar and secretly meet our top people, our top envoy, and meet with the Taliban, and then launch these negotiations that never included the Afghan government, was the beginning of the breakdown. The Trump administration pushed forward with that and signed an agreement with the Taliban that they said would lead toward peace negotiations between the Taliban and the Afghan government. Some of those meetings have taken place, but you have to understand that what we did is we put the Taliban in the driver's seat, and we never took them out of it. A top official in the government who I spoke to, and who's not named because his family is in harm's way, I can't name him, But he said to me last week, the problem for us has been that there's been too much pressure on the Afghan government and too much respect for the Taliban. That's how we've been approaching it from Trump to Biden. And that's how we have gotten to this place where we somehow got the idea that the Taliban was going to do what they said they were going to do. And all along, they have had this strategic plan for the military takeover of Afghanistan, which is what we've watched happen. Congress stood up an Afghanistan study group, a high-level group, members of Congress who have served in Afghanistan alongside former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Robert Dunford, and other top commanders. They studied the situation as it is, the agreements as they are, and they came away, and their conclusion in short was, there's an opportunity for peace in Afghanistan. It's an opportunity that has to involve all the players. It can't be this U.S. Taliban conversation. It has to include Afghanistan. It has to include the government. It has to include neighbors who are also going to bear the brunt of this. And then they said, and it also has to not be tied to an inflexible withdrawal timeline. And those are the places, because what happened was, and President Obama did the same thing, and I don't know, maybe President Trump would have done the same thing, but President Biden first said when we would be out, and then asked the military and the Afghans and everyone else to figure out how to make that happen. Instead of first putting conditions on the Taliban, on the Afghan government, that would make it possible for this withdrawal and this evacuation to happen.